God, if I have any more of that coffee, I'm going to die. I'm sweating profusely here. I've got cat hair all over me. I'm not shedding. They're shedding on me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is for you, wherever you are on the static planet. Michael John here of Michael John's Paranormal Ghost Stories. I'm your co-ghost host. Next to this jabron, next to me, Dale High Spirits Quigley, who I adore since 5th grade. We are brothers. Yes, we really are. It's amazing how lucky we have been on this journey of life. And here we are doing this right now. We are the voice of the paranormal, the voice of the paranormal from Windsor, Ontario. Windsor, Ontario's own, the paranormal voice. Dale, oh my God, what a weekend we just had, hot off the UFO Contact Convention in Houghton Lake, Michigan. What a blast that was. We got to get a lot of hugs in and get our souls recharged, if you will. There is a real charging, a recharge of our soul when you get to go to these conventions, some a little stronger than others. This is one of the stronger ones, with all due respect to any other one we get to go to. We've had the privilege of being at. I'll tell you what, man, going there, there's a different atmosphere there in Houghton Lake, Michigan. It's a different atmosphere in a very positive way, of course, as they all are. But this one, extra special. Got to talk about a lot of special things. Mainly, we focused on talking about. Sorry, I got thrown off there, my cat. And anyway, wow, what's happening here all of a sudden? Cats are everywhere, but you can't see them. But I swear it's true. I'm not imagining it. It's true. It's true. We got a chance to talk about and listen to stories of people experiencing galactics. To some, you would call them aliens. Whatever you prefer, you know what we're talking about. UFOs, abductions, ETs, crazy stuff. But that's a way, again, it's a way we bond with people, the way they bond with us. We get to share stories, hear stories, and talk about all things from A to Z in the paranormal. And that's what makes the paranormal voice. But it was great to get out there. It was a nice 3-hour drive there, 3-hour drive back. We got to spend a lot of time with each other in the car, laughing, joking, telling stories, of course, catching up, because we don't always get to do it as much as we used to, but when we get to do it, it means a lot. So thank you for that. I just want to say that publicly. Thank you so much for doing this journey with me. Dale,
absolutely. Like, Holt Lake was an absolute treat. And of course, you made your speaking debut at the UFO Contact Convention, and a spectacular job, may I add. I mean, you went out there and you put yourself out there so much. You told everybody your journey, everything that led up to where you are today. And I'll tell you, you had everybody on a roller coaster. Everybody was laughing with you. Everybody was just in shock to hear your story from like A to Z, and how you got to be where you are today, and what really the role that being an experiencer has brought to your life and everything, and how it changed you. So yeah, for those that were at the UFO Contact Convention, you got to hear Michael John speak. It was fantastic. Like I said, we met some pretty amazing people. We met gentleman, I can't think of his name right now. He has documentaries called Searching for Sasquatch. Jason Cruz, I think is no, I can't. Anyways, we met this gentleman. He was up in Holt Lake, Michigan. He was with the She Squatters, an all-female all-female Bigfoot research group from Minnesota. She Squatch. What an amazing group they were. And of course, they had this gentleman with them. They were in the area. They were shooting some documentary stuff. So it was good to meet those guys. We look forward to having them all on the show down the road in the future. So yeah. But listen to everybody's stories. Absolutely. It was overwhelming, the stories we were hearing and the people that were opening up to us and talking to us. And like I said, what a fantastic weekend. For those that missed out, make sure, if you missed out this year, make sure you get yourself to Holt Lake, Michigan in September of next year for sure, because it is one of the most amazing conventions that we are part of. And like I said, Deb and RJ and Mike Smith down there, did a fantastic job putting it all together, and the team, like all the volunteers, everybody, even the hotel staff, the people that had to put up with us, crazy people running around talking
Right?
about ghosts and UFOs and cryptoids and all
All the
that
good.
stuff, all the good stuff. So yeah, they have amazing staff down there. So thank you to everybody. What an amazing weekend. Just to say a quick hello to some of our guests on the side.
Yeah, beat
We
me
have
to
the
us. Do it.
lovely Valerie. Valerie, it was so good to see you this weekend. Get a good big hug from you.
Yeah.
It was
Always a
amazing.
sweetheart.
Sylvia, thank you so much. It was awesome. Yeah, UFO, always an amazing event for sure. And of course, our brother Lunker, Jason, how's it going, brother? Thank you for showing up here tonight. But before we bring out our guests, I just got to put this out there because this guy beside me has done so many amazing things in his life. I mean, he's back. He is part of NCG wrestling. He's this guy is everywhere. And then last night, of course, made another television debut. So, guys, it is so amazing what this guy is doing. For everybody that knows, that's been following us on Facebook, Mike is part of the new season of Traders Canada. So he made that debut last night. So that was spectacular. Good job, brother.
Thank
Like
you.
I said, it was so amazing you pop up on that screen. So I know a lot of our American friends and family can't watch it right now. We hope you get to see it somewhere down the road so you can see what this amazing show is. I know they do have Traders USA and Traders UK. So I mean, it's the same thing, but it's unfortunate that they only air the Canadian version in Canada. But I'll tell you, another spectacular run for my brother. It was so good to see you climb another ladder.
You know, it was really cool. And my mind is blown just all the opportunities that are happening right now for not only me, but for you and me. At the end of the day, it counts as both of us. I actually got caught wearing the Paranormal Voice t-shirt on the Traders Canada. So win-win for the boys.
Absolutely, yes. I was so excited when I saw that Michael John on the show, and then right there in plain view was the Paranormal Voice logo. I'll tell you, I could not have been happier. It was such a all of Canada got to see that. So, like I said, another spectacular ladder you've climbed. Like I said, so many amazing things going on in not just my life, but your life. And like I said, after this weekend, it was like that really ended it off in a high. But right now, I want you to bring out this guest because we had the opportunity to hang out with her this weekend and get to know her a little bit better. I'll tell you what an absolute sweetheart she is.
Yeah, and you know what? What a journey this young lady has been on. What a lifetime. And literally, this is a lifetime. Her story is a lifetime of experiences, of abductions. The good, the bad, and the ugly she shared this past weekend. She went up first. And I remember when I had a chance to finally go up to her and congratulate her on an amazing talk.
Yes.
Wow. I said to her straight point blank, how the hell can any of us follow that?
Yeah, she did set the bar pretty high that weekend.
I'm extremely proud of her because it's not easy to get up and talk, period, let alone to share what she shared.
Absolutely.
We're going to bring her out here in a second here. I just want to say this is an amazing woman, very strong woman who's got a hell of a story. Be ready for this. Turn your volume up and sit back. No distractions. You're going to want to hear every second of this. Welcome now, our good friend, experiencer, Nicolle Lynn.
Hi, everybody. I just want to say first and foremost, thank you to both of you for having me here today. This is a big honor for me. I'm a little nervous. I'm not used to talking about this in public, so bear with me, but I'm very excited. Also, it was great hanging out with you in Houghton Lake. I want to say thank you again to Deb and RJ DeBruce and to Mike Smith for inviting me to speak. It meant a lot to me.
No, you're, like I said, you were fantastic. I mean, you'd have never know in a million years if someone didn't know what you won't know, you wouldn't know that it was your first time. You killed it, girl. You know what I mean? And I don't, as I say, I don't spread cheeks. I don't kiss ass. You were good. You did really good. And I meant what I said. And how the hell do you follow that up? You killed it. So we're proud of you, to say the least. So.
Proud of you as well. You did a great job. I loved your presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah. So Nicolle, let's just get down to, your story. I think you had that whole room captivated. Nobody moved, twitched. I think people were even scared to blink because they were about to miss something. So yeah, let's get right into this. So, as Michael John says, you are a lifelong experiencer. For those who might be just new to the paranormal field or to the UFO field, can you explain to them what an experiencer is?
Yeah, of course. So an experiencer is it's kind of a broad term for people that have had experiences with what some might call aliens, some might think interdimensional beings. But, I refer to them as aliens because that's the easiest way for me to describe it so that everybody understands. But so, I guess you can also say people that experience other types of paranormal things are also experiencers. But the type of experiencer that I am is one that deals with what I would call aliens. I do tend to consider myself to be an abductee, and that's mostly because it was not consensual. This is not something that I asked for. This is just something that's part of my life since the very beginning. So yeah.
When you say the beginning, what is the beginning for you?
Yeah, it goes all the way back to my very first memory. This stuck in my head so much that I never forgot it. And it's not something that came to me later. It's not something that was brought back through regression. This is something that I always remembered. So my very first memory, I was still in a crib. So I have to imagine that I was, under 3, which is pretty crazy to think, that it's such an early memory, but it was of a gray alien, which if, your audience is unfamiliar, that would be the short, gray type, thin beings with the big black eyes. Pretty much your stereotypical, I would say, in popular culture depiction of an alien. So that was a gray alien staring over at me in the nighttime while I was in my crib. And I just remember seeing that face and those big black eyes in the dark and being completely transfixed. And I can't say that I was frightened. I would say I was probably curious, but yeah, that's my very, very first memory.
Now, I remember when you first started off your talk, and like you said, this all started for you were 3. Now, for those that were there, got to see a visual which you posted, and the first thought that came into my head, 3 years old, looking up and seeing this stare down at me, which you had a picture of a gray alien looking over the side of a crib. But at 3 years old, I think that would be burned into anybody's memory, because how would you be able to even forget about anything? Because that's very impressionable age.
Yeah, for sure. And I do have a really good long-term memory because I do also remember my dad worked out of town, and that was also before I was 4. And I do remember him leaving at that time. So it's not like this is the only memory I have from young childhood. And
Right.
I know that my dad did go to work, out of town. And so, it's just something that really stuck with me, throughout my entire life.
And speaking of your father or your mother, did you at any point, in the beginning stages, I would imagine you would have approached them, said something to them about that? Hey, I saw this man in my room, or however that comes out for you. Did you tell them?
It's funny that you mentioned that. I don't have any memory of that. And I just talked to my mother yesterday a little bit more about my experiences. And I went into it in my speech, but so my younger brother did say something to my mother when she says 2. She
Okay.
said, she has her 2-year-old son who's just starting to talk, coming up to her and saying that she actually elaborated to what I'd previously known. So I actually know more about the story now.
Wow.
Yeah, she said that my brother came up to her and said that there's an alien that that nobody else sees except for him everybody else sees it as an oak tree. And so he called it oak. But that an alien took him and me up into space and had us play with other children and my mom asked, well, can mom and dad come? And he said to her, no adults are allowed. Only kids can come. And when she asked him, well, can you show me where this is? He said, well, you can't see it because it's a black house in the sky. So if you look up, you'll just see black and darkness and the stars, but you won't see it. But there's a black house up there that the aliens take us up in to play with other kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is, coming from a 2-year-old, that's good. And that's pretty detailed if this is what he was, because what 2-year-old would ever be able to come up with an imagination that wild? When I think back, I don't remember much about being 2 years old, but just watching my kids when they were that age, they were making imaginations out of a box, but it wasn't anything very elaborate. But to say that there was a black house in the sky that you guys were taken to, your mom must have been like, okay, am I about to be pranked here? Because my 2-year-old shouldn't talk like this.
Yeah, she said that she was extremely disturbed by it, that she didn't really know how to handle it. And she even said, that she was wanting to sleep with us every night. And like I said, this is new information to me as of yesterday. So, looking back, we did sleep with my parents frequently. And so now I'm wondering if it had something to do with my mom's fear of this. She's never said that she really believes in it
Right.
to me before recently. And that's only because I've come out a little bit more to her. But then, it triggered her, or at least it didn't trigger memory. She always remembered it, but she explained it more to me yesterday when I asked her a little bit more about it because I brought up my brother. But as far as me, I didn't say anything to either of them.
Okay.
And so it's really interesting, though, that my brother independently had a story that he told at that time that was similar to what I was experiencing as well. Because I do not remember my mom or my dad ever being up there, especially not when I was a child. All I remember is being brought up there to play with other children. So that tracks with my memories.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you say playing with other children, reckless speculation here. Would you say there were hybrids? Would you say, best you can recall, there were other alien types of children? They didn't all look human.
Certainly. So I do remember there being human children there, and the human children would look very much, they're human, but so they would be in pajamas. So all of the human children would be in pajamas. Sometimes they would have typical like toys that you would sleep with, teddy bears, dolls. So looking back, I have to imagine that they brought them with them when they were taken.
Okay.
And then there was also hybrid children and of various degrees of human and alien combinations. I don't remember seeing any hybrids that looked older than like preteens from what I could gauge as far as like, a human equivalent. They often had what looked like white nightgowns to me at the time, some kind of dressing gown. And then milling amongst the kids would be gray aliens, full-size gray aliens, and basically watching over us and encouraging us to play with each other.
So, just for those that are, like I said, once again, new to learning about inductees and experiencers, they might not understand what a hybrid is. Could you put a little detailed into that?
Of course. I don't fully know what it is. I just know what I've seen and what people have talked about. And but what the beings have told me and from what I've seen, it seems to be a combination of a human and a gray alien with various degrees of more human features or more alien features. So it actually varied. It didn't seem like there was one standard of hybridization. It seemed like it was all over the gambit.
Now, so these hybrids, would they be walking on Earth now, like amongst us, looking that way? Do you think, or?
Well, I mean, I think if they looked like that, people would notice. So,
right.
Yeah, no, I don't. I can't say that I've ever seen a hybrid, in my daily life.
Sure.
Like you say, in real life. But yeah, I don't know where they went. I mean, honestly, and I often think about that, and that's something we can talk about, a little bit later. But yeah, when I was a kid, I was curious about these things. But like I said, I'd been seeing these gray alien beings since I was, my very first memory. So it didn't, for whatever reason at that time, it didn't really, freak me out or throw me off. It was just that there was some other kids I could play with. I mean, I was really young, so I was like, oh, cool. More friends I can play with.
So Jason is asking, were all the kids having fun with each other, or were they scared?
It was a long time ago, so it's really hard for me to remember exactly how all of the children behaved. Plus, when you're on board, for whatever reason, you seem to be in sort of an altered state of consciousness in that, I'm going to say to me, it's nothing like a dream, but it does seem to be like you're sort of sedated. Like if any of your audience has ever been under sedation, that's what it's similar to. So the memories are hazy.
Right.
But also this was, like I said, this has been a long time ago. So I do remember, maybe kids looking a little bit confused.
Right.
But I just remember us playing with each other, maybe walking up to each other, being like, hi, my name's Nicolle. What's your name? Oh, go ahead.
I would kind of think of it as, when you're in first grade and you're going to school for the first time, you're put in a playground with kids you don't know. Now, some kids you're probably going to hit it off with quick right away and, become friends. But there's also those kids that are so shy, they're probably going, okay, where the hell am I? And why am I doing here? So I would probably, to answer Jason's question, I would probably say there would probably be a little bit of both going on at the same time. Just for the simple fact is, when you think about your first day at school and you're put in a place where you really don't know anybody, and all of a sudden mom and dad's gone, you're like, what the hell?
Yeah. Another thing that I remember and that my brother had mentioned at such a young age, I just want to clarify. My mom said 2, and my brother was talking by that point. I'd have to imagine it was between 2 and 3, so probably closer to 3. But that's a really scary thing to hear from your kid.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but one of the other things he said was that they had a lot of toys for us to play with, and so he liked going up there.
Right.
And I also remember this. I remember there being, what a kid would consider toys, but they didn't really look familiar to the toys that I had at home.
Right.
So they would have us play with the toys that they brought us, which were basically teaching tools to teach us telekinesis, levitation, different things different ways to manipulate things with our mind. And so they would look like regular toys, but the gray aliens would be like, okay, so how about you levitate or lift up this block, and so there'd be something that looks like blocks, and they would say, think really hard and, make it raise up off the ground. And I would do that and it would work. And another thing that they would have me do is there was something that reminded me of a Simon toy, like the one that you would hit with the different colors.
Yep.
Except they wanted us to make the colors light up with our minds.
Oh,
and so we would do that as well. I can remember times where they wanted me to float, and I would be able to do that. It was basically teaching these, what I now know to be metaphysical abilities through play. Which is a very interesting thing to do with kids. So.
How long, again, these are kind of, hard to pinpoint, I'd imagine. But what was the longest you were ever away, would you suppose? Hours, days, longer?
I mean, as far as I know, the longest I was ever away would have probably been, well, more recently, I had like about a day and a half of missing time. So I think
Wow.
that's probably the longest. Before that, I would say like maybe about 12 hours. When I was a kid, it couldn't have been longer than overnight because I
Right.
had to go to school and all the rest of
Right.
that. So.
Now, yeah. So all started when you're very young. Now, it did not end there for you. Now, as you were younger, were the visits frequent, or were they like a monthly visit, biweekly, a yearly? So, I mean, because yours, like I said, starting at 3, like this, and you explained to us at the UFO contact, this still goes on today. So this is not like it's stopped, but we're just trying to explain to people, like, when we say you are a lifelong experiencer, it's not just because you remember it for this lifetime. It's a continuous thing. So I just want to get an idea, like, how frequently from the age of 3 would they come and visit you?
Again, that's a long time ago, so I can't really say how like with an exact,
Right.
number, how frequent it was. I would have to imagine, I mean, going on the track record of what continued throughout my life, there's never been a period longer than 6 months where I didn't have an experience. At that time, it would have been much more frequent than that. So I would guess maybe a couple times a month, maybe more
Okay.
than that. It was a
Okay.
lot. It was a lot.
Let's move forward a bit. We'll get out of your youth with relationships. Let's say, you're living with someone, you're doing that sort of thing. Would they experience anything with you? Do you have any stories that where someone you're in a relationship with would experience what you're experiencing?
Oh, definitely. So much so that I have to be upfront about my abduction experiences, like
Okay.
right off the bat, because I know not only do I want somebody to accept me and everything that comes with me and make sure that they can handle that, but because I know that eventually something is most likely going to happen to them. In fact, out of all of the people that I've dated, like longer term, as far as I know, there's only one or two that didn't have experiences with me.
Wow.
And this also goes to close friends. It's less likely with with friends because they're not spending nights with me all the time.
Right.
But yeah, most of my significant others have had not just one experience, but multiple experiences. My last partner was experiencing things with me frequently. From 2010 to 2020, there were times where I was taken up to 5 times a week, and my partner was taken with me as well. She knew that it was happening. She saw the beings. She had the missing time with me.
Yep.
So yeah, I like I've said before, I believe that I have a case of what I call contagious abduction, because if you spend enough time with me, they're going to be interested in you, or you're just going to be in the right or wrong place at the right or wrong time, depending
Right.
on how you see it,
Yeah.
and something's going to happen to you. Yeah.
Now with us, I mean, you triggered a thought. I mean, I've had my experiences are like non-existent. I should never bring them up compared to what you've been through, honestly.
Oh no, don't.
But hanging out with you this past weekend, now here we are talking with you. Should we be looking over our shoulders?
I mean, I don't know. It doesn't. To me, it seems like it's common.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm one of those people that believes that it's happening to everybody and they
Okay.
just don't remember it. But I think that, once it starts happening to you, it's most likely going to continue to happen. And, I know that I've heard of cases where it's like a one and done, but in my own experience, I'm not familiar with that. So I can't say anything about that. But most of the people that I've talked to since I've become involved in the community have had multiple experiences. And the term that we like to use is a frequent flyer, which I definitely am. So, but I also want to say, it doesn't matter what the amount of your experiences are. It's all valid, and it's all, extremely important, and it's all extremely personal, and it's life-changing. So I would never discount anybody for like thinking, oh, well, this hasn't happened to me as much as this other person, or, I don't think it's not a competition. Like, I mean, it's
Of
all
course.
super interesting
Yeah.
to me. And yeah, so I would just say, I would hope that people wouldn't feel that way, but.
So we had a question come in while you were talking. It says, are there any familiar faces of when you were abducted as a child that you would see today when you have experiences? So I guess he's probably asking, like, so, like, all these times that you've been abducted, when you go back to, I don't know if it would be the same ship as it is as a child as you are seeing today, but is there like familiarity with people that are you come across when you're having these abducted experiences?
If you're talking about the beings, I would say that there is at least one or two in particular that I do recognize throughout my lifetime. They look very similar though, so it's kind of hard to tell. But if you're talking about people, I'm just going to say yes and leave it at that, because I can't really go into that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, and I mean, like I said, yeah, because I mean, a lifetime of experiences. I mean, I know listening to Michael John's story and how they make you feel comfortable. So he talked about it, how he was in a room sitting at a table with them, but he felt like he knew everybody at the table.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they were beings. He felt like he knew them. So I would imagine you might have a very similar experience as that as well, because they don't want you to be frightened
Well, I mean,
at a time, right?
that hasn't always been my experience that they.
Right. Yeah.
we
And
carry-
we're going to talk, hopefully we can talk a little bit about the darker side, because, we wish that everything was all, they were just here to say, hi, how you doing? And give us big hugs. But unfortunately, it's not the case at all. So, it's like us as humans. There's good humans and there's bad humans, and you're bound to come across a bad alien at least once in all of your experiences, I would say. But but I mean, just knowing what I've heard of being around Deb and RJ and going to the UFO Contact Convention and listening to everybody's stories, and just how everybody, like the experiences, it seems to be pretty okay, but there are the bad side of everything, and we're gonna definitely get into that. But what I was where I was alluding to, where I was trying to think, my train of thought went. Just this is what happens to me all the time. I lose everything. So could you give us maybe one particular story about somebody you were with that maybe afterwards they were like, no, I can't do this?
Yeah. I'm gonna say, as far as my partners, there was never anybody that like left me because of that. They were all very supportive, and the experiences largely didn't focus on them.
Right.
So it was basically just they were around for the beginning of the experience or the end of the experience, that they noticed that there was missing time, that they saw me in certain precarious situations with beings. But it was never anybody that was like, I'm out. Like, I can't deal with this.
Okay.
Well, I say that, but at the same time, there was an experience with with one of my exes that was the tipping point to our relationship, but it wasn't. It had been a long time of experiences, right. So it was just a particular thing. It's a little bit personal, so I don't want to go into that.
No, that's
of course not.
Yeah,
yeah, and I mean, because like you said, it's to be an experiencer, not everybody would get it or understand it as well as you do. And I mean, just because you were this is all you really known. To you, this is, I almost hate to say it, but it almost feels normal to a point because when you're brought up as like me, like I think just dealing with the paranormal is normal to me because I've been dealing with it such a young age. It doesn't really phase me anymore. Like, yeah, certain points will kind of make me think, but at the same time, I'm like, well, no, this is to me, this is just normal now.
Yeah, I'd say it is normal, but at the same time, I mean, it's always extremely I don't know the right word for it. It affects me extremely in the moment. Like,
Right.
Even though I'm used to it and I've come to peace with the fact that this is happening, even though I've never known anything else, while an active experience is happening, I do get incredibly frightened at the
Right.
time.
Right.
And I feel like that is just because it's a human instinct that you
Right.
can't fight. I don't know if it's because the energy of these beings is so intense,
Yeah.
or it's the fear of the unknown. The fact that I don't, later on in life, I don't remember as much as I did when it comes to like the full abduction. And, that was because I actually made a pact with these beings that I didn't want to remember anything anymore, because it was, I said one night I was sitting in my room and I could tell that they were coming. And usually when they come, you get this feeling in the air. It's an electric feeling, makes your hair stand on end. It's a palpable feeling. There might be a hum or a rumble.
Wow.
And so while that was happening, I said out loud, if you keep doing this to me, I'm going to go crazy. I don't care what you do to me as long as I don't remember.
Okay.
That was in my early 20s. And ever since then, there's only been a handful of times where I can remember the full experience. Before that point, I remember everything. After that point, they respected my wishes. And I largely don't remember anything but missing time. I often do still see UFOs. And there were a couple times where there were beings walking around my house while I was fully conscious. But as far as memories of, possible physical experimentation or interacting on board, that I don't remember much of that, now. So, but, it's scary. It's still scary because you don't really know what to expect, and it comes out of nowhere and it's not on your terms. So no matter how used to it.
So when was what? Hold on, I got two questions in my head. You answered one for me about what's going on around you, and it reminds me of paranormal experiences as well. Very similar. A couple things you mentioned, which is interesting. But are you alone right now?
I mean, physically, there's no other human beings around me.
Yes.
But I would say that these beings are always watching me, aware of what I'm doing, and keeping tabs on me. I do believe that they're always around. I always sort of can feel their presence, not in an overwhelming way, but in a way that, and, plus they've told me, like, we're always watching you. Like, we know what you're doing. We can see what you're doing. We're going to always keep tabs on you. And so yeah, I mean, yes and no. I'm, when you ask me if I'm alone, yeah.
Do you feel them? Do you feel them around you at this point? You described the energy of when they start showing up, but I mean, do you feel a presence around you now? As we all know the meaning of that.
I mean,
energy
to an extent, yeah, but not anything like during, when I'm about to be taken, or when they're like standing physically in my room. I mean, it's just the sense, and it could just be me, being conscious of the fact that they're keeping tabs on me, that, I can feel a connection with them pretty much all the time.
Right.
But it's not like I'm like, oh, I'm sensing something's around me. It's just an ever-present kind of thing.
When was the most recent experience for you?
The most recent?
Yes.
I believe there's a lot. So I think it was August 27th, I think.
Wow, that's not too far. That's even less than a month away at this point.
Yeah.
Just wanted. It's up to you if you want to answer this question, because I don't really know, but it just says, like, after you have an experience, how long does it take you to recover from it? Like, so I mean, you kind of partially answered it because, like you said, you told them you really don't want to remember. So I don't know if that makes the recovery time. Um, but so it's up to you how you would like to approach that type of
Oh,
question.
of course. So there is definitely a recovery period, just in the fact that, wrapping my mind around, it's happened again. Like I know it's happened again, and trying to, at this point, I wish that they would let me remember more, but
Okay.
they don't. So I do, the next day think, what was happening, what was going on. Like I'm aware that something happened, but I don't remember largely, a big chunk of it. Um, and I would say it does take a toll on my emotional well-being in a way as well. I mean, I feel extremely drained. Not that long ago, it would have been last spring, I had a particularly intense abduction where I woke up the next day and I could like barely walk and I had to go to work. And that entire day, I was just completely out of it. It was as if I hadn't had a moment of sleep the night before. I was fighting, trying to stay awake. I felt wrecked. And like
Okay.
so there's definitely a recovery period, I would say.
Okay. So with some of the cases we've heard over the years, and some of the programs that I've watched, they say people noticed strange markings on their body. Uh, has that ever happened to you? Is it a way for them to, first of all, the markings? This might be a two-part question. Do they mark you so that they can identify you? It's like putting a microchip into somebody, right? Or is it just because of maybe something they were testing you, like testing your skin or like, has that happened to you and does it still happen?
First of all, I want to say this is all speculation because
Okay.
I haven't had, any definite answers. And for most of the things that have happened to me, they have not given me definite answers. So a lot of it is just what I've taken out of it.
Okay.
I don't typically tend to get marks, but
Okay.
for whatever reason, a month before I decided to go public with Michigan Move On, I got a mark. It was a month to the day before the meeting. And
Wow.
then the day before I went on Deb and RJ's show, Mystical Awakenings, I had a very large chevron shaped mark on my leg. I don't, like I said, this isn't typical. So I'm a little bit, I'm questioning, like, why is this happening now? But I also want to say that I have had what I believe to be an implant since I was a very young child. And
Wow.
Okay.
when it comes to that, I do believe that that's tracking me, maybe, checking out my body and seeing what's going on with it.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah, there could be a few variables going on there with an implant for sure.
yeah,
And they're probably all correct.
right.
Yeah,
All
I
the
mean, yeah, really. I mean, until we can actually have one of these beings sit down in front of us for a full pledge interview and be willing to answer every question every one of us would have for them, we would never truly know the answer to why they do the things that they do or why they're even interested in creating, like you said, hybrid babies. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's to create a race that would be more like them. I would assume, but like I said, we're all speculating on everything why they're doing it until I know it was asked at the UFO contact convention, like, what would we do if we actually had a chance to talk to them? And and I thought of the same thing. I was like, what would be the first question I would ask them outright? Knowing that I am not as much of an experiencer as say you and Michael John, my experience was just for the mere fact that I was with Michael John. They had no interest in me. I was just there with him, so they figured, well, he's there. We got to bring him along. But like I said, as Deb and RJ explained it, it's kind of like they just turned me off, and I was just there for until they were doing what they had to do with Michael John. So I said it's always fascinating how you do hear about some people. I remember I think it was when we were talking to John Yost. Um, for those that don't know who he is, and may him rest in peace because he was a very genuine, nice guy and very brilliant. He said he had a mark on his arm that he talked about in his documentary Alien Abduction Answers. I believe the name of it is. Uh, but yeah, he said, and even to the day, that scar never went away. But he could never, and it would glow at certain times. He said it would kind of heat up a little bit, and it would like when you slap your arm gets a little bit red. So it's always been a fascinating reason. It's like, okay, this is do they pick and choose? But I guess we really are not privy to that answer yet.
Yeah.
Um,
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
oh no, go ahead. I was just going to have another train of thought, but then I was just like, nope, stop right there.
I want to go back to, saying, what you would ask them if you were having an interview. And, there's nothing more in the world that I would like than to be able to sit down in a non-threatening environment with one of these beings. Because for me, it's like, why does it always have to be the desert, at 3:00 in the morning? Why does it have to be a scary forest? Why does it have to be my bedroom in the middle of the night? Why is it all these, inherently scary scenarios? Why can't we sit down and have a picnic at noon, in a beautiful field with flowers and just have a conversation? Like, that's what I want. And I can't even, I wouldn't even know what to say the first question would be, because I have so many questions. I would just talk their ear off forever. I'd probably be, sitting there for months. But yeah. Yeah.
It's funny you say forest, because the first time I went to the UFO contact convention was about a month and a half. Before that, I had my first sleep paralysis experience. And long story short, I mean, I ended up with a being in a forest so dark you could actually see the trees. So it's funny you made me go, wow, you just gave me confirmation. I get these little things every so often, and this was a little moment of confirmation for me. So thank you. My question, since we're all up, my question was if he is, to each their own, with all due respect to everybody listening, Jesus Christ, I believe, because he walked on water, could heal the sick. I believe he was a supernatural being of another world. I would ask them, is he from where you're from?
That's a good one. Yeah.
That would definitely be so. Jason's coming up with amazing questions for you, Nicolle. So this one says, "Do you remember seeing any different symbols on their ship that you would recognize on Earth?"
Yeah. So I saw symbols that look very similar to hieroglyphics. I can't say that any of the hieroglyphics that I've seen look exactly the same as the ones I've seen on ships, but I have, ever since I was a very young child, obsessively been drawing symbols that I saw on the ship. And like when people doodle, maybe they're on the phone, like I'm just doing these symbols that I've seen over and over again. A lot of them look very similar to what you've seen in crop circles, like circles and circles and triangles and, lines branching off with other lines. It looks like maybe some form of writing, or maybe like, like Chinese characters where the whole words, I don't know what they mean, but I do know that I've seen symbols on the ships that look similar to that.
Wow. And so I would ask you this question, and I don't know if they've ever told you, but have they ever really told you, like, why they're keeping tabs on you at this point? Like, what is it about? I know we don't know why they're doing it to the experiences or the people, but have they like kind of tried to say, well, we like you because you're this type of person or something?
So I have multiple theories about that. First of all, I come from a line of, in my family, I'm not the only person that this happens to.
Okay.
It seems to be more on my mother's side. And so I often think that this is some long-term experiment that I'm a subject of. And so that's part of it. The other thing I think is that I was especially adept at those tests when I was a kid, being able to levitate things or being able to read, their mind or, read other kids' minds on board. Of those tests and the games that I did, I seemed to be pretty good at it. And so I think that they appreciated that. That could have been why they continued. Another thing is that I am what I would consider to be a breeder. And when I say that, what I mean is that I am part of the hybridization program. I have had hybrid children, and I can't say that I've interacted with them much. I've seen hybrid babies of various human and alien combinations in tubes on a ship, and the beings told me that they were my children. And there was hundreds. So I can't even speculate on how many children I could have. When I was in my early teens, I had a lot of pain in my left side and where my left ovary is. And I went to the doctor and I had an ultrasound, and they told me that it looked like all of my eggs had been expelled en masse. So I don't know what happened to those eggs. This could be another reason why they're interested in using me and why I've been taken over and over and over again, is because something about my DNA or, a combination of what my abilities when they were testing me, that makes me especially attracted to them. Another thing I think is because I pretty much willingly, do what they want. So I don't really fight it. I get scared, but I don't fight it. And another memory I have is of me, waking up during an experience and looking outside and seeing a being on my porch. There was actually 3 of them, but there was one directly in front of me, maybe 6 feet away outside of my sliding glass window. And I know that there were 2 people to each side of me. I could see their shoulders. I didn't directly look at them because I was just, staring in awe at this being in front of me. And I heard the person to my left say, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I said, "What do you mean? What am I going to do? I'm going to go out there." And that person said, "Excuse my language, F that, I'm running." And then I heard that person run, and I just walked right outside to the beings and to the waiting light, which I assume was coming from a ship. So, I don't fight these things. So maybe it's because I'm a willing participant. I have to think it's probably a combination of all of these things that makes me especially attractive to these beings. But I have to say, the fact that they've used me for their hybridization program makes me think that it is something about either my DNA or my constitution. But that's what I would imagine.
Now, Dale, we had mentioned earlier, we're going to get to the darker side of things. And I'd like to make that happen now if we could. I want to start with one thing in particular that really hit home for me. It's quite a shocking story. And it's called, there's a book about it. And it's called Communion. Is that correct on the title?
So Whitley Strieber wrote a book about his abduction experiences throughout the 80s. It's been a long time since I've read it, but many experiencers remember the very iconic painting of a gray alien on the front of the cover. So that's the book Communion. But many of us see, I'm going to go into the story about what happened with that book, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I got a copy of it when I was 14, and it made a really big impression on me because I already had I'd figured out what was going on, but I hadn't really ever read much, about it because 1, I was scared, and 2, I was concerned about getting information from what I read and it tainting, my experiences. So I wanted to make sure that everything I experienced came from what was happening and not maybe something that I picked up. But I read this book, and it was like one thing after another where I was like, that checks out, like that checks out. This resonates with me. This does, this is really what's going on. Like I'm dealing with gray aliens. And so I had a cat named Butch, and which I thought was very funny when I was 8 that I named my cat Butch. But so she was an orphan, and my aunt bred Doberman Pinscher guard dogs. And so she was raised with those dogs, and I would call her my guard cat because she didn't act like a cat. Like, she acted like a dog. She didn't meow. She barked. Like, she tried to bark.
Amazing.
I legitimately thought that she was a dog. And she was very, very protective of me. She wouldn't let anybody come too near to me. You know, she was always on my lap. She actually like attacked a few of my friends pretty viciously. But she wouldn't hurt me at all. And we always slept together every night. We were best friends. She was my buddy, and I really love her. But so when she saw the cover of this book, she reacted really badly to it. Immediately started hissing at it. She actually started attacking the cover of the book. So much so that I was scared that she was going to turn on me, and I had to toss it across the room, and she went after it. And it was at that moment that I knew that she had seen me being taken and that she didn't like it, because like I said, if a human came too close to me, she would, react that way. But so that was the moment that I realized that, she had experienced stuff and that she didn't like that these beings were messing with her mom, basically. And so this is hard for me to tell. And for me, this is probably one of the scariest things that's happened to me. But so a few years later, like probably 19 or 20 years old, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I had that feeling in the room, like there was experience was about to start. And my cat was right in my face, and she was whimpering, like she was cowering in fear. She was terrified. And I remember saying to her, "It's okay. They're here. I know they're here. Like, just go to sleep. It'll be over in the morning." And then the next thing I know, it's the next morning, and my cat was not in my room. This affected me when I was a teenager. This was extremely scary to me. And I was, still trying to figure out what was going on. It affected my life in so many ways. And one of those ways was that I would barricade my door, because even though I knew that it wasn't going to stop anything, it made me feel better because I felt like I had some control over my environment. And so we were locked in tight that night. And I never saw my cat again. I looked for her everywhere, just in case. I looked in the attic, I looked in the basement, I checked out the walls. The ducts in my room were screwed down, so she didn't get in there. The only thing I could figure that happened was that she attacked them for coming too close to me, and maybe they defended themselves and they either injured or killed her, and then they took her away. I don't think it was that they just took her for fun. But not for fun, but they took her, to take her to experiment on her or whatever. I think because she was so protective that she actually physically tried to hurt one of them, that they might have injured her, and they knew how much I cared about her. So they had to get rid of it, basically, get rid of the evidence, of her being hurt. My cat was never ever seen again. And it really, really terrified me, because I started to think, what if I didn't come back one day? What if they took me and I didn't come back? I don't know. That one's rough.
Yeah, I mean, people.
Right, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, it's even to hear that story a second time around, it doesn't get any
easier,
because it's when you lose something that you means so much to you, and it's like you said, if I did not obey, what could they do to me if they can do that to an innocent animal who was obviously just there to protect you? You would think that they would be able to control it in some way, like they do like me. Like I said, they just turned me off and put me off to the side and did what they have to do. But it's so heart-wrenching to hear that story, and I feel bad that you had to deal with that. And it's crazy to think about. So wow.
Yeah, it's been I'm sorry. Yeah, about 26 years since it happened. So I've had a long time to think about it and,
Right.
kind of, I don't know, grieve. She was my favorite. She was only 8 years old. She was one of my favorite cats I ever had. She was my best friend. It really upsets me that they did that and that that they took her, and I was a wreck. I mean, after that, I was a wreck, and it wasn't much longer after that was when I said to them, if I keep remembering this stuff, like,
Right.
I'm going to go nuts. But yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I just got to ask. So, I mean, with all your experiences that you've experienced up to this date, um, you know, go in as deep as you want with this answer, but what has it done to you as far as dealing with mental health issues and just trying to make understanding of everything, because we know traumatic experiences or experiences in general, matter whatever they change us as a person. I know for you this has been going on most of your life, but if you can just go in as deep as you want, like just mental health wise, what does this how's this really affected you and your life?
So, in my experience with these beings, and I want to start off by saying that I don't think that they're inherently evil.
Right.
I think that they're doing what they have to do for their program or whatever, their purpose is,
Right.
and that they don't intend to upset us or hurt us.
Right.
They're just doing what needs to be done to further whatever it is going on, whatever their objective is. I also think they might not have the same morals as us. But then again, when you look, when we have test subject animals, like what we do to animals. So in that respect, they treat us pretty well, considering,
Right.
compared to what we do to animals when we're testing them.
Right.
But it has had a very, very, big impact on my life. And, I've dealt with insomnia my entire life, severe anxiety. I have PTSD. I've always dealt with depression. I don't know how much of that is connected to this. It could just be that I was predisposed to that. But, a lot of it was, I felt really, separated from my peer group because, this was like, it's a double life. I mean, I was going through all of this stuff and knowing that I couldn't share this with,
Right.
a lot of people because they wouldn't believe me or maybe they'd treat me differently. And so
Right.
it made me self-isolate a lot. There was a really long period of my life about 15 years where I was like basically a hermit. That was from my late 20s until my early 40s. So it was just before I reached out to this community that I was basically shut in. It's affected me in some pretty negative ways. But a lot of it is dealing with other people with
Right.
this that
Yeah.
makes me like that.
Right.
The fear of not being able to open up about these things that I've been going through. So yeah, it's had a lot of negative effects, and I've also had a lot of positive things because of this. I mean, I feel like they've acted as guardian angels in respect. I use that term loosely, but I feel like there has been times where they've protected me, and I don't. I did have somebody say to me, is that because I'm an asset and they don't want to lose an asset, or if it's because they actually do care about me and want to protect me. At this point in my life, I'd like to think, but I also do believe that they do actually care about me.
Right.
Because I feel like these beings, first of all, like if they wanted to hurt us, like we could be gone in a second. So if they wanted to, take over the planet and, kill off the humans, like that would be done in a second. That hasn't happened.
Right.
I believe that these beings have been interacting with us as a species since the beginning of time. I do believe in the ancient alien theory. I believe that they've been here since the beginning, and they have actually, told me that is the case. And I believe that, well, I shouldn't say I believe, but they've actually told me since a very young age that that they love me. They've said that to me multiple times, over and over again. That's a reoccurring theme. They've also told me that they're my family. So I don't know if that's a tactic to make me more of an easy subject to work with, if it's a manipulation tactic, especially with the family stuff. Like, I have no idea. But when these beings have told me that they love me, some of their behaviors tends to show that that's the case. So again, I just want to be very clear that, while I've had a lot of negative effects in my life because I couldn't talk to people about it, and I couldn't, it wasn't easy to find other people who had, the similar experiences as I did, at least, back in the 90s and, early 2000s, people called you a kook, like you're crazy, and so I very much had to keep it to myself. But also the beings told me not to tell other people. So early on. So that affected me as well. But it has had a very, very big impact on me that way.
I want to ask not only to you, Nicolle, but everybody watching right now, if they want to give their opinion in the comments. This would be really cool, I think, just a little interactive thing. What do you think these are? These are the beings, whether, for yourself or even for me. Are they time travelers? Are they interdimensional beings? Are they from outer space? Or maybe it's something I haven't mentioned. Everybody's thoughts, please go ahead in the comments. Nicolle, go.
I've heard this before, and I tend to think the same thing. Maybe all of the above. I mean, I've always considered them to be flesh and blood aliens. I don't know if that means they're traveling interdimensionally, but I do consider them to be aliens. I don't know if they're from another planet or if they're just spacefaring, in general. So they're just all over the universe. Okay. I often wonder if they have many Earths that they're working on right now, and seeing how long it takes us to blow ourselves up. I mean, I often wonder that. Could it be time travelers? It definitely could be. It's pretty coincidental that they look so similar to us. Yeah. And especially because they often, and in my case as well, lots of messages about how the Earth is going in a bad direction and that we have to change that, or that we're in big trouble. So, that points to maybe they are us from the future. And they've been through some cataclysm. And then you go back to the hybridization stuff, and maybe it's because they're trying to save humanity or their own species. I don't know. It's a huge question, but it's sure all of the above for me is an appropriate answer.
Well, and I mean, Nicolle, I would tend to agree with you. I think partially, I think they are us. Because when you remember back in school and they talk about the evolution of man, I mean, apparently centuries ago we were apes who shed our body hair. We learned to stand up tall. We learned to walk and talk and all that stuff. So who's not to say that the aliens are the advanced version of who we are going to become in the future? So yeah, whatever that might resonate, I that's the way I tend to feel like at this very moment, listening to you and just thinking about what we were taught in school, like the evolution of man. And so it's like anything is truly possible where people. So Jared says interdimensional time traveling aliens from space. Jason says I feel like they are space fearing beings. No home planet, just many massive ships to go. Well, maybe their ships are like our versions of RVs. They just live in them, which would be pretty cool.
But yeah, like Battlestar Galactica. They're just roaming around in a ship,
doing their thing.
I mean, and that was. I mean, no spoilers. Never mind. I'm not going to spoil the end of Battlestar Galactica.
No, I haven't watched the last season yet. Don't.
Watched it. We know what happened. So, yeah.
I lost my train of thought. Go ahead, Michael John. Whatever you were thinking. Um,
Sorry, I was
yeah,
looking at comments too. You
yeah,
caught me
yeah.
off guard.
I totally
Well,
lost my train of thought. I'm just like Battlestar Galactica, where s- space RVs like space like in Spaceballs.
precisely that type of
Exactly,
RV.
Jason. That's what it
Nailed it.
That's
is.
it. That's it.
Yeah, John Candy is your co-pilot. It better be
That's right.
true.
That's
Oh
right.
my God.
Pure consciousness who temporarily inhabits physical forms as a rental vehicle. No, that's a good one, Bill. I like that one. Um,
That's good. That's good.
oh, I'm totally, my mind is totally going. Like I have 1,000 questions, but I'm just like, what is one that's been really burning since
You know what's
since
interesting? Every so often, so we have the clock. I see a clock in the corner. It says live and how long we've been going. If I did and I should have, in hindsight, I mean, I wouldn't have thought of this, but I mean, now it's like looking back. If I'd have just put a check mark for every time I looked and I saw a synchronicity of numbers, literally 111, 11, 11, 12, 12, 21, 21, on and on throughout the show right now, I'd have a lot of check marks. I kept catching multiple numbers. That doesn't normally happen. So I'm just saying that was something interesting during this interview for sure.
so
Do you
that would be
experience a lot of synchronicities, Nicole?
I was going to say, you hang out with me, that's going to happen a lot. Yeah, I like to say the phrase synchronicities rule my life. It seems like it's nonstop. High strangeness is off the charts with me. That is definitely something that comes with this phenomenon. And by that, what I mean is that, besides for these experiences, just stuff in real life, happens all the time that seems completely impossible, but it happens. I mean, last night, I was hanging out with some friends at a bar and we were talking about Puerto Rico, and I went outside and this guy that I had very briefly talked to a couple months ago, never seen him before, never seen him since, happens to walk by and goes, "Oh, you're that alien girl. Weren't you supposed to do a presentation? Like, you really made an impression on me. I was just thinking about you the other day." And all I had said to him was that just, a couple of UFO stories, we were just talking to each other.
Yeah.
And then he starts going in about how he's moving to Puerto Rico. And we had literally just been talking about Puerto Rico. And just the fact that like he showed up out of the blue, being like, "Oh, I was really thinking about you. And weren't you talking about your stuff?" And, and it days after I did,
Yeah.
So stuff like that happens all the time. I mean, the repeating numbers, like, and, that goes along with this experience as well. I mean, a lot of time, the hours between 3 and 4 are like prime time for this, and really after 3 to dawn. But 3:33 is a number that came up a lot that I would see over and over again at night during these experiences. 11:11 is my personal number. That I experience, but there's so many synchronicities I can't even begin to explain it. Okay, so like one of them, I'll say a good one. I was in a bad space and I was gonna probably go out and do something stupid, and so I said out loud, like as if talking to the beings, "If you don't want me to do this, then you stop me." And I went out to my car and it literally looked like somebody had my tire was shredded, like completely shredded. And I had driven home the night before. Like I would have noticed if my tire was shredded. And so I'm like, "Okay, you got me." Like, yeah, I'm not going anywhere. But so there was a reoccurring theme around that time with rabbits. And because I'm a big fan of a band called Mr. Bungle, and they had come out with an album called The Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny. And
I love it.
I'm just big into rabbits just in general, but as like a sign, an omen, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I went to change my tire and I found out that I needed like the special lug nut that I didn't have. So I got a ride to AutoZone. And I went in there and it turned out that they did not have this lug nut, but there was a rabbit sitting on the counter and he's like, "I'm just going to give you this." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And he was like, "Do you just want this for free?" And I'm like, "What store do you," like in my head, I'm like, "What store do you walk into where they just give you something for free?"
right.
And like I said, I just been talking to people about rabbits, the universe basically stopped me from going out and being young and dumb. And actually, I have the rabbit right here. Another synchronicity. But so
it's a cute bunny.
I know. So the cashier gave this to me, and he was like, I hope that you find what you're looking for. And the rabbit was basically like a sign of that's what I was basically looking for at the time. But so ended up going back to my house and eventually did get the lug nut. But yeah, I just thought that was an interesting one that it was like the universe stopped me and then showed me that I did the right thing by not doing what I was going to do. So
and I get synchronicities like that. I mean, numbers is one thing, but and not to discount them, but I mean, in comparison, I mean, numbers for me, they happen. Normally for me, it's 333. That's a big one, but I do see various ones, but a lot of like 60% of the time it's 333. Talking to a gentleman this past week, and I can't say his name because he wouldn't appreciate it. He likes to keep things on the DL for himself, but he's got an amazing lifetime of synchronicities. And when I spoke with him last year, my synchronicities amped up, and it was no different this year. I'll say one real quick without getting into too much, so it's not about me here. It's about synchronicities for a quick second. Anyways, Dale and I went for lunch, and I was going to tell him, oh my God, after talking to so-and-so, I bet my synchronicities are going to amp up again, and I better watch who I tell it to because their synchronicities are going to amp up as well. I didn't tell him that. I remember I go to Dale, I go, who? That we're talking about a gentleman who was a Bigfoot researcher who we had spoke to the night before. And I was kind of talking about the situation and what it went down. And then there's a football game going on behind Dale's back on a TV screen. And as I'm watching the football players walk around, you see the back of the jerseys has got their name. And I go to Dale, I go, what was that Bigfoot guy's last name? He goes, Sawyer. And what do you think the name was on the back of the jersey? For example. Anyways, I relate so much to this thing. It's ridiculous.
Yep. And it really seems like when it's happening a lot and it's really flowing, it's like more and more magical stuff in your life happens. Like a lot of good things happen. It's like a good omen, basically. Okay. But and the more you look for it, I feel like the more you'll notice it. The humans are really adept at recognizing patterns. So a lot of it is that, but it's just some of the stuff. It's like it's impossible. Like it just doesn't make sense, And that's the ones that really get you.
Yeah.
So Jason had another question. It says, are there any movies out there about abductions that you can really relate to?
Ooh.
Okay. So I guess, what is that recent one? It's not that I relate to it. It's just more along the lines of, it's a little bit more violent than anything I've experienced, but, maybe Nobody Can Hear You, or what is it? I can't remember the name of the movie. As far as movies, Communion. Communion. I was going to be the one I would go with because that is definitely the most closely related to what I've gone through. So, and it's just an adaptation of the book that was also very closely related to what I've gone through. Right. And Christopher Walken is in it, and I really like Christopher Walken. So he's
an alien, damn it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
If there's anybody that's an alien,
I'm telling you. Not even joking. Ask Mel Gibson about him. He's got thoughts on that too.
Yeah. I'm a little bit more to that though. I'm actually pretty disappointed in most of the alien movies that I see because it's so far from anything that I experience. And I'm like, can't there be just one movie where they're not trying to take over the planet?
Right.
Like, could it be just one movie? Like Signs was very promising, and then it just went out the window. And so. As far as that goes, like I don't think there has been too many alien movies that are done right.
Who's in Signs?
Who's in Signs?
Is that Mel Gibson?
Yeah. And Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah.
Okay. Just that I mentioned him, and now you're talking about stop it. Here we go.
It's happening. Will save you. No one will save you. I don't know. Is that?
Yeah. Oh. So I wouldn't say that's anything like. Cocoon
wow.
is a good
one. Cocoon was good because they were here to do good. Like they were trying to help old people feel young again. And I thought, that's cool. I hope they come when I get old.
But so Marley mentioned No One Can Save You. And that it's just the beginning abduction experience in that that is like, it tracks, like, but the very beginning, once she starts killing the aliens, it's completely off the rails. But yeah, just the surprise of there being an alien in your house and hiding from it, and that is something that I've experienced. So.
This next comment, I hope when I meet an alien, it's just like Paul. It's I forget the name of the movie. No, the movie was called Paul, wasn't it? Or no, what was the name of the movie?
I'm not sure.
It's two guys. They're going to a Comic-Con. They end up pitching up a hitchhiker who was an alien, and yeah, his name was Paul. He was like the coolest alien ever. I cannot remember the name. Yes, it was called Paul. Yeah, that's right.
Huh.
Yeah, it's a very funny version of if aliens were to come down and act just like us. I guess that they would act probably like a nerd and a geek, but that's okay. We all are in some form or fashion. We're to put labels on people that are into the paranormal, they call us all geeks and weirdos and freaks and nerds. But you know what? It's all good. So Nicolle, I want to. We hear this a lot at a lot of these conventions. People about reaching out and telling their story. First of all, tell us about the first time you actually talked to somebody about your experiences, and then also talk about how important that is that everybody else to talk about it or find somebody to talk about it.
Okay. So the first time that I told, anybody that this was happening to me, it started off with I saw when I was probably 6 or 7, and I saw a ad for Mysteries of the Unknown, the Time Life series, and in that ad they showed a bunch of people drawing. That there was a bunch of drawings of gray aliens, and the narrator said, how is it possible that all these people have drawn the same thing? And I remember turning to whoever was next to me. I was very young, so I don't remember who it was. I don't know if it was a friend or a family member, but I said, why are they all drawing my friends? And that's when I really realized, started to realize, even though I couldn't really understand it at that young age, that's when I put a name to it. And then when I was 12, I told my best friend, and she believed me right off the bat because, she had noticed strange things happening with me. When it comes to telling somebody that I didn't know, I guess I'll just say in this community, I reached out to Bill Konkolewski because, he's got a ton of experience. He's an experiencer himself. And so I talked to Bill about it, and he was a great resource in that way. He's been helping out experiencers, in various ways, and having experiencer support groups for a very long time. So yeah, he's the one that I told my story to, that was in the community. But I've been telling my friends and family members since I was in my teens. So yeah, it's never really been a big secret. It's just I didn't tell my mom and my dad because the aliens told me not to. So, but when I got into my preteens and I knew that this was what was going on, I told almost. I put basically all of my close friends and some of my family members. So, and then the second part of the question,
how important, like to you in your theory, is how important is it to people to talk about their experiences with people obviously you could trust,
yeah,
but like we are when we're at these events where people can just come up and talk to us. How important is that to somebody, or to really say, what, if you think something has happened to you, don't be shy, like reach out to somebody to talk.
I think it's extremely important as long as you're comfortable with doing that. It's incredibly cathartic. And knowing that there's other people out there that have had the same or similar experiences to you, even if they're wildly different. I mean, just being able to talk to sympathetic ears that believe you and won't judge you for what you tell them. I think it's incredibly important. It's incredibly therapeutic. Also, it goes to, the fact that, the disclosure, it's disclosure. Like, many people in this community, especially people at the UFO Contact Convention, say we are disclosure. And I believe that the government isn't going to give, the world, at least I believe not anytime soon, the kind of like legitimate, answers as far as what's happening to us, better than we will. And so I think it's up to us largely at this point to share our stories, privately, to help, have somebody to like go through this. And, maybe if you could find an experience your support group, or reach out to MUFON. I know that they have, the experience your resource team. I think that's incredibly important, but also sometimes maybe for those who can, sharing it publicly, because it can help other people know that they're not alone, and that, there's at least some people out there that don't think they're crazy. And so I think it's incredibly important.
Well said.
Thank you.
What's up the road for you, Nicolle? Like, what are you going to be doing? Any more talking? What are your plans? If you can share some things with us like that.
Yeah. So I don't know if everybody's familiar with the term. I mean, I'm going to get a little bit out there now. I mean, it's all been out there, but especially out there. So I feel like I'm one of these people that have been what's called activated to talk about it, which is when you feel basically like a calling to share this information. And I believe that the beings that I'm in contact with, actually, one of the things about what they're doing with me is that they want me to share this at this point. I'm not exactly sure why they want to do this now, but they definitely, it seems like more and more people are feeling compelled to reach out and share their story. I don't know, if it's because it coincides with the government and what they're doing now, but I definitely am one of these people that feel like I want to actively share my story at this point. Okay. So I've only spoken to a small group at Michigan MUFON, and then this convention is the first time I've spoken to a larger group. I would love to continue to do this. I have to say, I never in a million years thought this would be me. I'm not a public speaker. I don't enjoy typically public speaking, but for whatever reason, this just is what I feel like I was meant to do. I know that sounds strange, but I definitely feel like,
not at all.
Yeah, like I can pretty easily speak about this, surprisingly. And I feel like that was in a way planned by the group that I'm involved with.
And you look great doing it. You're wearing a nice red shirt with a black tie.
Thank you.
I said, nothing hotter than a lady in a tie.
Thank you. But and also, I am writing a book, so hopefully that'll be out.
See, you're reading my mind. Stop it. I was just about to say, is there any chance from somewhere down the road, are you
good for you
going to be brave enough to put all your life stories on paper for the world to read? And I think that's exciting, and I can't wait till that comes out, because like I said, watching you speak for the first time this weekend, it looked like you were a complete natural, like you've been doing it for 30 years. So would have never known that was the first time you were up on stage telling people your story. So I want to say I am super proud of you for one, coming out and telling your story to the world, as scary as it might be for you. But I think people need to hear your story, because it's going to spark something in them to say, yeah, it's about time that I talk about my experiences as well.
So, I really, really, really appreciate that, Dale. And I feel the same way about Michael John. So,
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Yeah.
So I'm going to say thank you, Nicolle. It's been such a pleasure. It's been an hour and a half, and I'm
sure record for us.
Yeah, it's a record for us, and keeping us on the edge of our seat the whole time. But yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out of your life to talk to us, talk to our community, telling your story, because I think that's the most compelling part of all this. Keep it up, keep going, keep doing what you're doing, because you're phenomenal.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me tonight. I really appreciate it.
Nicolle Lynn, what a journey. A lifetime of experience, a lifetime of abductions, the good, the bad, and the ugly of it. You gave us all that. You gave the listeners all that. On YouTube and also the replay on KGRA Digital every Saturday night at 1 a.m. If you're listening, thank you so much for tuning in then. What more is there to say? Then we will see you all on the other side. Thank you, sorry, to all the creeps, the freaks, the weirdos. Oh my God, I almost forgot to make up the TPV Nation from day one to day now. We don't get to do this right here, right now, what we're doing without all of you. So thank you. Again, one more time, Nicolle Lynn, big things, big future for you. You're an amazing human being, and we're grateful to call you a friend for sure. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll see you all on the other side, but in the meantime and in between time, happy hauntings.
Happy hauntings.